Hey everybody, I'm Nam, and today I'm going to teach you how to play Splendor. Splendor is a gem collecting game. Object of the game. The object of the game is to get the most prestige points. You get the most prestige points by getting points from development cards or from noble tiles. Alright, how do you win? So you win by getting the most prestige points after triggering the end of the game. The end of the game is triggered once one of the players gets at least 15 points. And then you finish out the round so that everybody has the same number of turns. Setup. Okay, how do you set the game up? First of all, there's these different levels of development cards. So level 1, indicated by the number of dots in the bottom of the middle of the cards. Level 2. And level 3. So what's going to happen is you're going to set it up so that you have shuffled all of the cards for each specific level and then dealt out 4 cards in a particular row for that level. Second thing is you're going to put out your gem tokens. So I've set up a game for 4 people. Splendor plays between 2 to 4 people. And when you're playing with 4 people, you basically use all of the components. If you're playing with 3 players, make sure you take out 2 of each colored gem. There's 5 different colored gems. There's black, red, green, blue, and white. If you're playing with 2 players, make sure you take out 3 of each particular gem. The final colored stack of chips is actually gold, which acts as wild cards, or a joker, as they refer to in the rules. And make sure you lay out nobles. The number of nobles that you put out should be equal to the number of players plus 1 more. So if there's 4 players, you put out 5 noble tiles. If there's 2 players, you put out 3. According to the rules, the youngest player goes first. But if you're just reasonable people who just randomize who goes first, it's up to you. When it's your turn, you can do one of 3 things. You can purchase a development card. That's how you acquire these. You can get gem tokens. That's how you get the resources to pay for these. Or you can reserve a development card, which means you're going to hold on to one of these in your hand, and you can basically save it for yourself later if you cannot actually get that development card right at that time. Each player then goes around the table, takes their turn until one player triggers the end of the game by getting 15 or more points at the end of their turn. And then at the end, whoever has the most prestige points wins. And if there's a tie, whoever has the least developments amongst the tied players for the most prestige points. First action, gathering gems. So the way that you gather gems is you can either take 2 of the same color or 3, but they all have to be different colors of gems. So let's pretend here I wanted to use the action. I could get a black, a blue, and a green gem for myself. If you wanted to take 2 gems of a particular color, you could, so long as there's at least 4 in the stack. If there's less than 4, so if there's 3 or less, you cannot take 2 as your action. So if there's 4 left, it's okay, you can still take 2. If there's 3 left, you can't take 2. Also note, at the end of your turn, if you happen to have more than 10 gem tokens, and this also includes gold jokers, you actually have to discard down back to 10 at the end of your turn. So you can only hold 10 at any given time. Reserving a development card. So with these cards, if you see that an opponent is trying to get one and you wanted it too, what you can do is use your turn to reserve a development card. What you do is you take the development card that you want and you take it into your hand. As soon as you take it, refill it with the next top card from the deck. Also, when you reserve a development card, make sure that you take 1 gold token to your bank as well. There, this is Nam from the future. I think I totally forgot to mention that when you reserve a card, if you don't like any of the development cards that are face up, you can actually reserve the top face down card of each of the level decks. If you're feeling really lucky, you can reserve the top card of any of the level decks as your reserve action. You'll still get a gold for it. It's just kind of a crapshoot because you don't know what it is. Buying development cards. When you are going to buy a development card, you have to pay the cost. How you read a development card, if you take a look at this, you'll see that the cost to purchase this development card is going to be in this lower left-hand corner. It will cost 1 green gem, 3 red gems, and 1 black gem, and you'll get this development card that gives you a black gem discount. Let's take a look at another card. This is a level 2 card. This costs 1 white gem, 4 blue gems, and 2 green gems. It'll get you 2 victory points and provide you with 1 red gem bonus. So let's say I wanted to take this development card. If I check, if I have these 10 tokens and there's 2 of each, I actually cannot buy this because the cost is 1 green, 3 red, and 1 black. I happen to be short 1 red in this situation, so I can't get this. By a similar account, I actually can't get this or get this either. But I can purchase this. This will actually cost 2 white gems, 1 blue gem, 1 green gem, and 1 black gems. So what I would do is put these 5 back into the bank, and that allows me to purchase this development card. And so I would have this, and this would provide me a red gem discount on anything else. Now let's pretend it's my next turn and have this red gem development card. I can now actually get this black gem development card. 1 green, 3 red, and 1 black for the cost of this. I don't actually have enough gem tokens to cover it, but with the bonus, I actually have exactly enough to pay for that because I would pay 1 black gem, 1 green gem, 2 real gem tokens, and I have the red gem discount. So I would actually be able to put these back and grab this as well. Now anytime you get these gem development cards, you should spread them out so that everybody can see the gem that it provides you and any prestige points that you would get from it. Also, any gem tokens that you get are actually open information as well. So the development cards that you can buy don't actually also have to come from here. They can also come from your hand. So if you had actually kept any cards in your hand through reserving a development card, you can purchase those as well. The one thing about reserving a development card is you can only have at most 3 development cards in your hand at any time. So let's say you have a hand of 3 development cards. You actually could not reserve another one. The only way to get rid of these is to purchase them and to actually put them into play. You pretty much follow the same process. You would have to pay the cost. So this will cost 2 white and 2 green. And of course, if you already have any gem development cards on the table, it'll reduce the cost of any of those. As the game progresses, you're going to be able to get bigger and bigger development cards. So as you go through the levels, they become much more expensive. But by then, hopefully you will have built up a lot of the lower cost development cards to reduce the cost of them. So for example, if I wanted to get this, I could actually purchase this. This costs 2 white, 1 red, and 4 black. But if we take a look, I already have 1 white gem discount, so this will take care of the other one. 1 red gem discount, and then 4 black. So I would actually end up just paying 3 gems for this. So I would just pay this and those, and then I would obtain this. In the situation that you have gold tokens, these actually act as wildcards and can be treated as any colored gem as you wish when purchasing any of the development cards. So let's say in this case this player buying this 3-pointer right here. So what they'll do is, let's see if they have 6 white. Well, they have 3 white gems, 1 white discount, so that's 4. They could then use these 2 as their other white ones. So let's say they pay all of these. They'll acquire this. And if we take a look at this player's board right now, this player would have 3 points showing. Now let's say this player's board has advanced to the point where they have collected this many things. The turn in which they acquire enough to obtain one of these nobles, that's a free action at the end of each turn, but you can only get 1 noble each turn. So let's say, for instance, at this point, this player gets to 4 black development cards and 3 red development cards. Well, 1 more red is going to sway this noble. So let's pretend this player obtains this. And at the end of that turn, they'll get to collect this. And that's how you acquire the nobles. So at this point, this player's board is granting them 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 points. So just 2 more points and this player could trigger the end of the game. So you may want to strategically time that so that you're in the most advantageous position. Remember who went first. It will be important at the end of the game. So at this point, this player would have triggered the end of the game. 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And then make sure that everybody else in the round gets the same number of turns. And at that point, after everybody's turn is over, then the game is over, and you just count up the number of prestige points that you have. The person with the most prestige points wins. There is a tiebreaker. So in the event that 2 people have the same score after having the same number of turns, the tiebreaker is the player who purchased fewer development cards. And that's how you play Splendor. Alright, general strategies. So full disclosure, I don't really play this game that often, so I'm not even sure if I'm technically qualified, but I'm just going to go ahead and share my thoughts because have fun, enjoy. Anything that you get an edge in your strategy totally helps. First thing I want to go over is to talk about the board state. So when you're looking at a board and trying to determine what to do, determine what colors you need, determine what colors are going to be most desired. So for example, if all 4 cards in level 3 development, they all require the same set of like 2 or 3 gems, then you can be rest assured that everybody's going to be gunning for that series of gems. Also remember that very few cards in level 1 are worth points, so make sure you really need those colors in order to make things efficient for you. Because remember, every turn that you are spending gems that you've acquired and you're getting a development card, if it's not getting you points, it's not advancing you towards the end of the game. Also, because all information is open, I totally recommend trying to pay attention to everybody's board and making sure that you know what people are going to be going for, or at least somewhat going for, and if it gets to a very crucial point, then try and stop them. There's various ways to disrupt someone. If you know they need specific colored chips, go for the gem tokens of that color and try and empty it out. What you can do is perhaps if you know they need a specific development card, you can reserve that preemptively and early. The problem with doing that is if you don't have any intention of actually playing it, you've just locked off an entire slot in your hand, and you won't be able to use that, especially if you end up not buying that later. So it's effectively a turn that you wasted, and you're constricting yourself to fewer resources, which is, in this case, open hand slots for reserving a development card. But disrupting from a very important development, like mid to late game, can be very crucial. So getting a key, level 2 or level 3 from someone, that could prevent them from potentially having 2 to 5 points. And that's a huge swing. Something else important to note is that remember when you have fewer number of players in the game, the stacks of colored gem changes. The golds are always available, so all 5 of those are going to be always available. The stacks are adjusted so that there's going to be a very limited number of chips, or basically in all of the colors. So it's going to cause some sort of resource contention. So looking at the colors is going to be very important. If you know you're going to be needing a bunch of colors, and this is generally okay to go for level 1 development cards. If you have a plan and it's going to pay out more than once, knowing that you're going to be using a particular gem color 3, 4, 5 times, it might actually be worth it, because over several turns, the cost to acquire it will be recouped because you saved so many tokens like down the road on like level 2s, level 3s. There are also times in which if you can see what's on board or you see what's on hand, and if you have enough to just literally get gem, get gem, get gem without having to pay any tokens to, that's actually a fairly decent strategy to try and chain and get a ton of developments without having to pay anything. If somebody senses this and sees what you're going for, that might be a good time for that person to disrupt. Remember, the only way you can get gold, which is the wild chip tokens, they are only given out to a player that reserves. And also, if there's no more left when you go to reserve, you actually don't get any. So they're limited, but remember, you can only reserve up to 3 cards in your hand at a given time. So managing your reserve is key. One of the things that I do like to do is if you end up needing more wilds because you can't acquire, getting them earlier actually helps to prevent you from reaching the 10 chip limit. So if you actually end up reserving earlier the thing that you want and then start saving, then waiting for other people to return their chips, you might get more of the color that you need later. Actually managing how close you are to the 10 limit, because nothing feels way worse than having to discard chips at the end of your turn. But sometimes it depends on whether you want to spend them or if you need to save it for a better piece of your strategy. But yeah, discarding chips feels bad, but can sometimes be really good. I do try and minimize it, that being said. Also, there's times in which you might just want to hoard a bunch of things and hope that after the next couple of purchases, you'll be able to see the next series of development cards, and hopefully they're like in the colors that you need or fits within your strategy. If you're playing with people who are not as experienced, you'll probably be seeing them buy a lot of level 1s. If you're playing with people with more experience, level 2s are probably going to get purchased up. And it depends on the playstyle of all the people you're playing with. So just know your audience. Make sure you employ the proper strategies. Sometimes also you might want to preemptively reserve a development card that you need. You'll never know when somebody else might be thinking the same thing against you, and they do it first. I put together a spreadsheet that has a bunch of interesting card distributions. I'll just show you in a sec, but hopefully you guys find that interesting and useful as far as like making this strategic decisions in your games. So obviously, if you see particular cards that are out on the board that you want to get, go ahead and get them. Most of the time, people don't have an issue deciding. But what comes down to a weird situation sometimes is you don't want any of the gems or any of the development cards on the table. Now knowing that, I decided to put a little spreadsheet together of various distributions. So for the noble tiles for the base game that I have, and I think I have one of the earlier print runs, the number of prestige points that all of the nobles give you are 3. That's pretty much standard. 3 is kind of like basically an extra boost of getting 1 to 2 cards, which could make the difference between victory and not. But the total development card cost can vary a little bit. So if we take a look at this distribution, let's pretend you're playing with 4 players. 5 of these will get chosen at random. Half of them have about 8 development cards in cost, and half of them have 9. The big difference between these is that, you don't buy these, you just get them. So you can't acquire these until at least the 9th turn or the 8th turn, but realistically it'll take longer than that because you have to acquire the resources to get it. So just to take a look at how these are cut, so these ones that cost 8 are 4 and 4, and they're usually across 2 of the development card colors. And then the ones that cost 9 cost 3, 3, and 3, and they're just lacking 2 of the development card colors. And so that's generally that distribution. Now, the reason why I wanted to show you this was just so that you could see the type of analysis that you could do on a game. And to be fair, looking at the nobles doesn't really help because at the beginning of each game, you'll kind of see all of the nobles for that game anyway. So there's no secret information here. But I did this analysis with development cards as well. Let's take a look. What I did over here was I put down the card level. So the first level of cards, there's 8 of each. 8 times 5 makes 40, so there's 40 level 1 cards. And I broke them down into what gem color the bonus provides. And the number of prestige points. If it's blank, it's just 0. And then this is the total cost of gems required to purchase that development card. And then the actual color cost breakdown of it. So I went ahead and did this for all of these. Level 1s, level 2s. Once again, level 2s, there are 6 of each. Level 3s, there's only 4 of each. So that gets you the 40, 30, 20 split. And then you can kind of see some of the numbers in here. So I did some aggregates and just made sure. So each card in the deck, after you sum up everything, they all cost 117 potential for any given color. So that distribution is flat, is cut equally across the board. So there's a total cost of 585 gems for all of the cards in the entire deck, or for all of the decks. And there's 140 possible prestige points from everything. So now, given that, we now know that there's 90 total cards, 40 level 1s, 30 level 2s, 20 level 3s. That's actually broken down in the instruction booklet, so you can find that out as well. But average points per card is 1.5. So if you're trying to get a card worth 1 point, it's probably not worth it unless you need that gem color as well. There's not just going to be one single parameter when making a decision in the game. You try and optimize for as many things as possible, but hopefully the statistical breakdown, if you don't know what to do, can help guide you to figure out what to find next, especially if you're seeking specific colors, trying to optimize for a number of points. So for average points per card for level 1, because only one in each color has points, everything else is worth 0, it's about 0.125 points per card in level 1. But in level 2, average points per card is 1.833. And if you actually find a card at level 2 that's worth 2 points, that's probably pretty good. And if it's worth 3 points, that's really good. And then average points per card at level 3 is 4. So at level 3, they're worth a lot more points. They're worth like 4, 5, 4, 3. Now to go through each one, each color at each level has a similar breakdown. All of the colors in level 1 have a very similar cost. So there's going to be 2 of them that cost 3, 3 of them that cost 4, 1 of them is worth 1 point, and 3 of them are worth 5. The one that's worth 1 point is going to be the one that costs 4 of any specific color. Here and so on. At level 2, you're going to find a bunch of cards. There's 1 card that costs 5, 1 card that costs 6, 2 cards that cost 7, 2 cards that cost 8. And if you take a look, the one that's worth the most points is the one that costs 6. And that 6 is pretty much always of the same color. So, same thing with here. The one that costs 5 is also all the same color. In weird exceptions, the blue and the green ones are the only ones that have the ones matching their own color. Whereas if you're in white, the 6 will cost its own color, but then the 5 cost is in a different color. So that pattern is repeated because the 6 cost for the red one is also 6 in red, but then it's black in 5. And then same thing here for black. The 6 one is all in black, but then the one that is 5, it costs 5 in white. So that's something interesting to note. Also, for level 3, we have things that cost 7, 10, 12, and 14. And the points for these are a lot higher, 4, 5, 4, 3. And each color has the exact same distribution. It's just that the color of the gems that it requires vary widely depending on what you're trying to get. And actually, as you'll see in a moment, I don't think it's actually equal. Alright, so the average cost per card for everything is 6.5 gems. That sounds like a lot, but 6.5, that's just slightly over 2 turns. So if you focus on 2 straight turns of just getting 3 gems apiece, that's almost this. But at level 1, the average cost per card is 4 gems. So that's about 1 1/3 turns, but that's, I mean, as far as full turns are concerned, you need at least 2 turns to get the gems where it's worth it, right? And then average cost per card at level 2 is 6.83 gems. And then average cost per card at 3 is 10.75 gems. So that's effectively 3 turns of only gathering gems. But just remember that you actually cannot get to this level of gemage, if that's a word. You can't get to this many gems and hold it because 10 is the limit. So you have to have, at the point of getting any 3 cost cards, you basically have to have development cards. Color key. Well, since blue and black start with the same letter, I had to come up with a different letter. And honestly, I play Magic as well, so it's just easier to use the Wooburg from that. So here's the mapping. Now, at level 1, the distribution is pretty much equal and it's spread across everything. So like white here requires the same number of things in one column given to the next column, I think, for the most part. But if you're looking for a particular color gem and it's not on the table, how do you know which color gems to stock up on or try and acquire so that when one comes up off the top of the deck, or if you reserve one off the top of the deck, that you can get it? And I did a quick analysis based on having these numbers broken out. And at level 3, if you're looking for a black level 3, you'll want to prioritize getting red, then green, then black. And then the other colors are just equal or they're the lowest. They shouldn't be a problem so long as you have like a couple. But how I came to this number was if I take a look at this chart here and I take a look, out of all the black gems, the red costs for it are the highest in total. And then if you take a look at green, it's the next. So that's 8. And then black has 6. And then white and blue have 3. So that's how I came up with this. And so for level 3, it's kind of very straightforward, as all of them just have the top 3 that are most evident. So if you're looking for a red level 3, prioritize green, then blue, then red, and so on. And each one of these tends to need itself basically in the middle and then 2 other colors above it. And each of the colors is represented equally, so the cycle is pretty much consistent across level 3s. Level 2s, however, look extremely weird. And so basically following that, you can kind of take a look at this yourself if you would wish. Let me go ahead and throw a link to this in the video description. You can analyze it all you'd like. So what I did was get sums for all these for that particular color for the same. And so for black, you need to prioritize, if you want a level 2 that's a black, you want to prioritize green, white, black, red, blue. And then for red, you want to prioritize black, red, blue, white, green. Now here's where it gets a little funky. I actually expected the pattern to kind of continue like this, but instead 2 of them differ weirdly, and I think this is related to what I mentioned earlier about green needing green and blue needing blue for their particular 5 and 6 cost ones. And so if you're looking for a blue, you need to prioritize blue, then black or white at the same like frequency, and then green and red. For green, you need to prioritize green, and then blue, and then white. And then for white, that kind of goes back to the same cycle as black and red. So it looks like these are all cycled similarly, the black, red, and white. And then these 2 are just slightly different. Don't know why, that's just how the distribution happens to be. And I saw something somewhat similar in level 1 as well. So for level 1 white, you're trying to prioritize blue, green, black, red, white. But for blue, you're trying to prioritize red, then black or green at the same frequency level. And then white, and then blue. The one thing that's common to all of these is if you're looking for a particular color, you prioritize the color that it is the least frequent. Makes sense from a game design standpoint, because you can see there's a very clear relationship for black and white at level 1, but then there's these other ones that have a different distribution and at different levels. Like green is weird because black, red, and blue all have the same frequency for green level 1, and then white and green. So actually, let's take a look at that. Level 1 green. So we take a look at level 1 green, right? So if we take a look at this block here. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then we count red. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And we count blue. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So all 3 of those in green have 9. And then it's undeniably white over green because there's only one that requires 1 green. But yeah, so I thought that this was really weird and interesting to look at. And hopefully somebody finds this information useful or something. But I was like, whoa, I thought everything would be equal. and they were kind of equal around like here and like here. But then once you get to like what colors you need to get other colors, and this is kind of like the driving force behind all of the decisions in the game. Right? And that concludes today's tutorial and strategy segment on Splendor. Hopefully you guys enjoyed and find that useful, and otherwise, have a glorious day. Talk to you guys later. That the color, whoops, didn't mean to make that edit. So what I would do is I would put back these 5. You don't want to have more of the thing to get the thing that you're trying to get to give a discount on that particular resource.